Hi, my name's RJ. This is my channel where I talk about Dungeons and Dragons and making fantasy characters for your tabletop RPG games, and I stream sessions of playing D&D, but mostly I am just building characters and putting it out there for you to use, as well as a few other things mixed in, but I do have other plans for the future. And I'm making this video because we just hit a huge milestone on this channel. I didn't think it would happen anytime soon, but we hit over 10,000 subscribers, and that's a big deal. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. It really means a lot because this channel is pretty much just me. I have recently gotten some help on the editing side, but 90% of the work is just me sitting in front of my computer that I used to just play Skyrim on, but now I do mostly just editing on, or sitting in front of this microphone and just recording myself for an insanely long time, and then spending an unreasonable amount of time editing that down to something that sounds coherent. But with this big milestone in the channel, there's 3 things I want to talk about now that we're here. There's been a ton of characters that I've built on this channel, so I want to talk about the top 5 best and the top 5 worst characters that I've built. Then I definitely want to talk about the future of this channel and everything I have planned for the future and what's coming up. But before we get to any of that, there's the big elephant in the room that we got to talk about. The OGL, otherwise known as the Open Gaming License. This is something that allowed people to create homebrews for Dungeons and Dragons, as well as put out tons of content like what I do here, or like what Critical Role does, or what plenty of other YouTubers do, as well as plenty of people that just like to make stuff for D&D. That's kind of what made D&D successful. But here's the thing. I haven't talked about the OGL yet for 2 big reasons. One, time. I don't make a living off of YouTube. It doesn't pay my bills. I still have a day job. So I have to do this in my free time and trying to keep up with all of the news about the OGL and everything that it allows us to do or possibly prevent us from doing in the future. Yeah, I don't got time to keep up with that. And the second reason, there's tons of other YouTubers making tons of great content about it, keeping you informed about what's going on. And I'm hoping that the OGL does get resolved and that Wizards of the Coast comes to their senses and allows us to play D&D the way that we've enjoyed playing D&D, keeping it open and keeping it so anyone can get into it, and we can help spread the word of this amazing game that all of us have grown to love. But if they don't really get their crap together and they kind of leave us hanging, which it seems like they're on the right path, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. If they don't sort their stuff out, I will probably make some adjustments here, change the name of this channel for one, because it's called DnD Builds, and then maybe we'll look at some other systems, like some of their competitors. But hopefully I don't have to resort to that. We're just gonna keep moving along, try and have fun while we can, and not get bogged down with all the craziness that's going on. Do your part to try and make sure that people can play games the way they want to, and I will try and do everything I can as well. But in the meantime, I know some people just like to come and relax and watch some videos without getting stressed out about every little nuance of everything going on. So with that in mind, let's jump into the top 5 best and the top 5 worst, or bottom 5 character builds from my channel. Disclaimer, this is totally just my opinion and has no basis in fact, popularity, or anything that actually matters. Starting at the 5th best character that I've built, or video that I've made rather, is Batman. He was the very first character I ever built on this channel. The video itself is a little rough at times. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I knew nothing about editing. I knew nothing about sound quality. I had no filters on my mic or anything like that. But the build itself was fun, I enjoyed it, and it really holds up today as far as I'm concerned. So if you can get past some of the editing and roughness about it, I'd highly recommend checking it out. And coming in at number 5 of the worst, we're going to go with Hawkeye. Well, the concept of this build is solid. The overall quality of it is not so great. I was very rushed when I was making this one, and I missed a very glaring problem. While I've made plenty of mistakes throughout many of the videos I've made, which may even include some on the top 5, this one completely revolves around a mistake. Because despite the fact that this entire build revolves around an arcane archer, I completely ignored the fact that arcane archers need intelligence. So, yeah. that was my screw up. But overall, this video was just rushed and I wasn't really happy with it. Coming in at number 4, as far as the best videos, I'm gonna go with the Spartans from 300. While this one was still very early in my YouTube career, it was still a great build overall. It was one of the few times that I figured out how the historical idea of a phalanx strategy, which means people lined up shield next to shield, can really work in D&D. I showed it to some of my other D&D playing friends and they were like, oh my god, I want to play as this because it will really drive my dungeon master insane. The entire build allows an army of shield wielding soldiers to all have advantage while the enemies all have disadvantage, and it's just constant and it's amazing and I love it. Coming in at number 4 of the worst videos that I've made, I gotta say I really smelled what The Rock was cooking, because my video about The Rock, even though I had some fun with it, it was the first time that I got a copyright strike. That's what I get for trying to include something related to the WWE, because they are really sticklers when it comes to copyright infringement. I wound up having to cut a huge chunk out of that video just to hopefully not get it demonetized, so that was a little rough. Then coming in at number 3 as far as the best videos, I gotta go with Joker from Persona 5. While I did have a slight issue with how the Eldritch Adept feat worked, which I mentioned in the comments of that video, overall I had tons of fun with this one. And it actually got me to start playing Persona 5 again and get further than I had before, because the intro to that game is really long and it took me a while just to get into it. But I had so much fun with this one, and you can tell because it's actually the longest video I have on my channel to date. And speaking of games that I love, the 3rd worst video on my channel is about Final Fantasy X. The reason I had to put this on the top 3 worst was because I love this game. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. I laughed at it, I cried while playing it. It was just such a massive impact on my life. And I feel like the overall video was rushed, I didn't dive deep enough into each character, and it just deserves better. So I'm probably gonna wind up circling back and making some of those characters, but giving it the time it deserves. Then coming in at number 2 of the best videos I've made, I gotta give it up for Cloud and Sephiroth. It was a 2-part build and I thought it was so awesome to make a double video. And little did I know I wasn't the only person to have thought of this, even though other people thought of it way earlier than me. But I still loved it, and I was really happy with the overall music that I got to play around with. And while the pacing was a little slow at times because I was still working on talking a little faster in some of my videos, I just had fun with this one. I had a big-ass sword-wielding badass that could do some cool things, and the ever-intimidating Sephiroth. Then jumping over to the worst videos, at number 2, we have my Pokemon build. There's becoming a bit of a trend where I try and fit too much into one video, or I rush everything, and it just turns out kind of crappy, so I'm going to avoid doing that in the future, but that's definitely what happened with my Pokemon video, because I tried to fit all 3 original starters plus Pikachu into this video and how to make all of them, and it just kind of left me wanting to spend a little more time on each of them, and I probably should have just split up the video so that way you could talk about each one individually. It was still fun to play around with, but really it was rushed and I was scrambling to make that video and put it together. And then instead of jumping back over to the number 1 best, let's talk about the number 1 worst. That's going to be Stranger Things. Talking about forcing a video, this one was definitely one of them, and I was trying to jump on the hype train about everything happening with Stranger Things, and it just really didn't work. I felt like I needed to include characters I probably shouldn't have worried about, and I probably should have just focused on a few main people, but whatever, it's out there. I wanted to show some appreciation for the fact that Stranger Things did highlight that D&D is the amazingness that I thought it was, but I didn't show it the justice it deserved. And now, before I jump into the number 1 best video that I think I've made, I want to talk about some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I gotta talk about is Agretzko. There wasn't a lot of love for this video, and frankly, I understand why. Agretzko is kind of a unique show that might not have as much popularity as some of the other things I've covered, but this was the very first video that I got as a request from a commenter, so I had to go for it. There's no way I was going to avoid a comment requested video, so that's kind of what most of my videos have become ever since then. Then the other videos that deserve an honorable mention are the ones that are super specialized, like Luffy, where I tried to make the most stretchy armed character possible, Sonic, where I tried to make the fastest character possible and still somehow managed to make him almost twice the speed of sound, One Punch Man, where I tried to make the biggest crit possible, and of course Overlord Lord Ainz Ul Gon, where I tried to make a necromancer with a massive undead army, and that was the main focus of the build, besides the how to cheat at D&D part. But with all of the honorable mentions taken care of, I gotta bring up my number one favorite video, and that's my Ichigo build. I had so much fun with this build. I think the build worked perfectly, and people seem to really enjoy it. It did have one mistake, and that was that I gave him the defense fighting style because you need to actually be wearing armor, and I didn't really focus on that because even I overlook a few things here and there. But I had tons of fun with this video, and I was super excited that Bleach was coming out with the 1,000-Year Blood War. So I was happy to make this. I loved the Bleach anime when it came out initially. I haven't had time to dive into the 1,000-Year Blood War much yet, but I plan to very soon. And overall, I'm probably going to make more characters from Bleach, just like I plan to with plenty of other anime. But now that we've covered all of those videos, let's talk about what's coming up for the channel. I still plan to make plenty of characters no matter what platform I have to do it on. I'm still going to be streaming sessions of D&D or whatever platform I have to be streaming. And I plan to do some more things on top of that and on top of building characters, because I want to make some optimization builds, because that might not necessarily fall into a character, but I still have some ideas for how to optimize certain things, and I can't help but want to make videos about it. Then on top of that, I want to be able to get new players into D&D and tabletop role-playing, so I plan to be making a series of how-to videos for new players and how to get into D&D or possibly other tabletop role-playing games. And then finally, the other big thing I really want to do is go to some conventions. I'm going to make some videos about it, and I already have certain conventions in mind, but I will be making videos about every step of the way and see if maybe I can help out some patrons or people that comment on the videos and give them tickets to the convention as well. Maybe we can run into each other, or maybe you just want to go and have fun. That's fine too. I just want to give some thanks back for everybody that's watching and everybody that's helped this channel become what it is. Speaking of all the people that have helped make this channel what it is, I gotta give a quick shout out to my patrons, because they really have helped this channel come a really long way. YouTube, of course, doesn't pay the bills, but Patreon has made it so I'm allowed to do a few more things that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And a special thanks to my player character patrons Zed13, Bad in Person, Viral Naravar, Caleb Roan, Yaksha Senpai, The Dino21, Keelon, and Salvador. Then going above and beyond that is my Dungeon Master level patrons that I actually play D&D with. Daniel Galvin, Ramirez Games, Michael, Eric Wade, Games Take, Tristan Bennett, Benjamin, Devin Happy, and Heyo. And then going above and beyond absolutely anything that I ever imagined would be possible, Kilo. He is my god tier level patron, and I cannot thank him enough for everything he's done along the way, especially now that we've hit over 10,000 subscribers. I hardly even know what to say other than thank you. And finally, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session or any other tabletop role-playing game, especially if you've watched any of my videos.